Family is supposed to be the place where you feel safest. It's the dinner table where laughter is shared, the house that shelters you from the storms outside, the bond that promises comfort when the world feels cold. But what happens when that sacred circle is broken in the most violent way imaginable? When entire families are ripped apart inside the very homes meant to protect them, and the person responsible vanishes into history, leaving only silence and bloodstains behind. These are the cases that terrify communities most. They remind us that tragedy can happen behind locked doors, and that sometimes the evil we fear isn't a stranger lurking outside. It's the unanswered mystery of who walked in. Tonight, we'll revisit two disturbing family murders that remain unsolved. Our first case takes us not to the bustling cities of America, but to a remote farmstead in Germany, where one of the most haunting family murders in history occurred. Though it happened more than a century ago, its echoes still reach across oceans, because the questions it raises are universal. How can an entire family be slaughtered inside their home, and how could no one ever be brought to justice? Hinterkaifeck was a small, isolated farm about 43 miles north of Munich. The Gruber family lived there. Andreas, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her two children, Kazilia Jr. and Joseph. Their maid, Maria, also lived with them. Life on the farm was quiet, sometimes difficult, but for years they managed. Yet in late March 1922, strange events unsettled the family. Andreas reported hearing footsteps in the attic. Those searches turned up nothing. Keys went missing. Strange tracks were found in the snow leading toward the farm, but none leading away. Neighbors grew uneasy, and even the family themselves feared something was wrong. On March 31st, their new maid, Maria, arrived for her first day of work. Tragically, it would also be her last. That night, someone entered the home and systematically murdered 6 people. One by one, family members were lured to the barn, where they were struck down with mattock, an old farming tool. Even young Kazilia Jr., only 7 years old, was killed, though evidence showed she lived for several hours after her skull was crushed, clumps of her own hair torn out in desperation. Inside the house, little Joseph and the maid Maria were also slaughtered. Days passed before anyone noticed the family missing. Neighbors became suspicious when smoke continued rising from the chimney, but no one answered at the door. Eventually, they entered the home and discovered the horrific scene. The investigation was chaotic. Police had few resources and no modern forensic tools. Dozens of suspects were questioned. Neighbors with grudges, traveling criminals, even relatives. Some believed Andreas's rumored incestuous relationship with his daughter Victoria had brought shame and violence upon the family. Others suspected jealous suitors or disgruntled farmhands. Yet none of the theories were ever proven. One of the most chilling details was that the killer, or killers, remained on the farm for days after murders. Neighbors reported smoke from the chimney, and evidence suggested livestock had been fed. Whoever did this lived among the dead, calmly tending to chores while 6 bodies lay decomposing only feet away. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved to this day. They've been called the most disturbing unsolved family murder in European history, but their resonance is global. The story forces us to confront the unimaginable. How can someone destroy an entire family, stay in their home without fear, and simply vanish forever? Our second story shifts us back to the modern era in the heart of Tokyo, Japan, where the peaceful image of suburban neighborhood was forever shattered by one of the most disturbing family murders in living memory. On December 30th, 2000, the Miyazawa family was preparing to celebrate the new year. Father Mikio, 44, worked for an advertising firm. Mother Yasuko, 41, was a part-time teacher. They had 2 children, Nina, age 8, and Rei, age 6. They lived in a quiet house beside a park in Setagaya, a middle-class neighborhood filled with families much like theirs. To their neighbors, the Miyazawas were ordinary, happy, and safe. But in the early hours of December 31st, someone broke into their home. What followed was a crime so brutal, so intimate, that it continues to haunt Japan to this day. The intruder attacked with both a sashimi knife and bare hands. Mikio was stabbed to death on the staircase, apparently confronting the killer head-on. Yasuko and young Nina were found stabbed repeatedly upstairs, their wounds suggesting not only murder but rage. Rei, only 6 years old, was strangled to death in his bedroom. The entire family was extinguished in a matter of hours. Yet the most disturbing part wasn't just the violence. It was what the killer did next. Instead of fleeing, he stayed inside the house for hours. He ate food from the fridge, drank tea, and even used the family's computer to browse websites. He slept on the sofa, changed clothes, and left behind nearly every piece of evidence imaginable. Fingerprints, blood, even clothing. He used the bathroom without flushing. It was as if he didn't care if he was caught or believed he never would be. Police launched one of the largest investigations in Japanese history. They analyzed the killer's DNA, which indicated he had mixed Asian heritage, possibly Korean and Southern European. The knife was traced to the store where identical blades were sold, but no useful lead emerged. Thousands of people were questioned, but no one matched. Even today, the evidence sits in police files, chilling in its completeness, but useless without a match. Theories abound. Some believe the killer was a burglar surprised by Mikio, who killed a family to silence them. Others think it was personal, a deliberate attack on the Miyazawas for reasons unknown. The sheer recklessness of staying in the house, of leaving so much DNA, of sleeping among the bodies, suggests either supreme confidence or severe mental instability. Decades later, the Setagaya family murders remain unsolved. Each New Year, neighbors gather outside the home to remember the family, their grief compounded by the unanswered question: who could walk into a house filled with warmth and laughter, slaughter an entire family, linger for hours, and then vanish forever? The Hinterkaifeck murders and the Setagaya family murders may be separated by continents and decades, but they echo each other in disturbing ways. Both crimes involve the annihilation of entire families inside their own homes. Both revealed killers who were chillingly comfortable, lingering among the dead. Both cases left behind a mountain of theories, but no justice. They remind us that the line between safety and terror is paper thin. A house may feel like a fortress, but history shows us even the strongest walls can't always keep out the darkness. And as haunting as these two cases are, they are not alone. Around the world, other families have been torn apart in equally mysterious ways, their stories buried in silence. In our next episode, we'll open the blinds on two more disturbing cases, each more unsettling than the last. Michigan, summer of 1968. It was meant to be a season of peace and relaxation. For the Robison family, their summer cabin on Lake Michigan's Good Heart community was supposed to be a refuge from the stress of city life. Richard Robison, a successful magazine publisher, brought his wife Shirley and their 4 children, Richie, Gary, Randall, and Susan, up to the cabin that June. But by late July, neighbors began to notice a strange silence. The family, normally social and active, had disappeared. Mail piled up, grass grew long, and windows stayed dark. A caretaker finally entered the cabin and discovered a scene so horrific that investigators would struggle to comprehend it for decades. Inside, all 6 members of the Robison family lay dead. They had been shot multiple times with 2 different guns, a .22 caliber and a .25 caliber. Some had also been bludgeoned, suggesting rage rather than efficiency. The bodies had been left to decompose for nearly a month in the sweltering summer heat, making the crime scene unbearable and the investigation even harder. Suspicion quickly turned toward one man, Joseph Scolaro, an employee of Richard's magazine company. Scolaro had embezzled funds and was allegedly under pressure from Richard, who may have uncovered the theft. Ballistics tied shell casings from the crime to weapons known to have been owned by Scolaro, though he conveniently claimed the guns were stolen. Despite mounting evidence, prosecutors hesitated. The case was circumstantial, and without the guns, conviction wasn't certain. Years later, as pressure built for answers, Scolaro took his own life, leaving behind a note proclaiming his innocence in the Robison murders. To this day, the family slaughter has never been officially solved. The Robison case remains one of Michigan's darkest unsolved mysteries, a brutal reminder that even idyllic summer cabins can become graves, and that the killers of families often escape through cracks in the system. Our final case takes us to Pike County, Ohio, in April 2016. 8 members of the Rhoden family were murdered in 4 different homes, all in one night. Unlike other family murders where the killer leaves a single bloody scene, this crime unfolded like a coordinated military operation, meticulous, ruthless, and chillingly personal. The Rhodens were a sprawling, tight-knit family living in rural Ohio. They raised chickens, worked odd jobs, and, like many families, had their share of conflicts and complicated relationships. But nothing could explain the sheer brutality of what happened on the night of April 21st. When authorities responded the next morning, they found devastation. At one home, Christopher Rhoden Sr., his cousin Gary, and his brother Clarence were shot execution style. At another, Christopher's ex-wife Dana and her children Hannah and Chris Jr. were found dead in their beds. Elsewhere, Clarence's cousin Frankie, his fiancée Hannah, and their 6-month-old baby were attacked. The only reason the infant survived was because the killers spared her, leaving her alive in the blood-soaked room. The crime scene stretched across multiple homes and multiple family members, suggesting coordination and planning. Whoever did this wanted the Rhodens wiped out. Theories swirled: drug trafficking, personal vendettas, land disputes. For years, no one was arrested. Fear gripped the community. Who could kill 8 people in one night and vanish without a trace? Eventually, suspicion turned toward another family, the Wagners, who had ties to the Rhodens through marriage and custody disputes. Prosecutors accused them of carrying out the massacre to gain custody of Hannah Rhoden's young child, who shared paternity with a Wagner son. The case exploded in the media as one of the largest family prosecutions in U.S. history. But despite arrests and trials, lingering questions remain about who pulled the triggers, who gave the orders, and whether all the truth has ever been told. To this day, the massacre remains clouded in uncertainty. The Rhodens' homes have been torn down, the crime scenes erased, but the pain remains. 8 lives were taken, children left orphaned, and a community scarred by a night that proved evil can be calculated, precise, and terrifyingly close to home. The Robison family in Michigan, the Rhodens in Ohio. 2 very different families, 2 very different eras, yet bound together by the same truth: that entire bloodlines to be extinguished in a single night, and justice can remain frustratingly out of reach. Family is supposed to mean safety, the one bond that cannot be broken. But these murders remind us that even the strongest families can be torn apart in ways that leave behind only questions. And here's the most unsettling part. For every case like the Robisons and the Rhodens, there are countless others hidden in police files and newspaper clippings, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to ask, who could do this? The story doesn't end here. There are still more cases. Families just like yours, just like mine, that were erased without reason, their killers still free. And next time, we'll go even deeper into the shadows they left behind. Because sometimes, the only thing more chilling than the crime itself is the silence that follows. So stay with us. Subscribe, follow, and join us as we open the blinds on the next chapter of family murders that remain unsolved. Because the questions don't stop here.